Good Wednesday evening, listeners, and welcome to this edition of Conversations of a Sister here on YouTube. We are back from the long holiday break, Christmas, New Year's, Kwanzaa, and we're hoping that everybody had an awesome holiday season. I know I did. I got much needed rest and was able to catch up on a few things, but time just flies. But in the midst of it all, I received all of your emails. And because I have the YouTube platform, I have the blog platform, I have the Facebook page, I have the Instagram page. It was so hard, or it was such a challenge to keep up. Well, all the messages that was received daily based upon the information that I was constantly posting and putting out there. So, for those of you who are tuning in, I thank you for joining me tonight. You can remember to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube at Conversations of a Sister, because this way, every time that the conversations go live, you will receive a notification. So, in the midst of everything, we had Inauguration Day. We've had some very exciting things that has happened in the news. The Eagles are champions, and they are on their way to the Super Bowl. I'm sure that I have some friends that are excited about that. And we learned today that Senator Robert Menendez was sentenced to 11 years in prison for bribery. Isn't that something? It is funny because I have a friend who always knew he was dirty. You know, they mentioned to me for years that this senator was dirty. I don't know if it was because he represented Patterson, New Jersey, but anyway, they were always like, "I'm telling you, he's dirty. He's dirty. He's a crooked politician." I don't know how they knew, but they knew. And then when everything came out about him, I was like, "Oh my God, you were right." You know, he is a dirty politician. So anyway, speaking of conversations of a sister here on YouTube, I know some of you are not crazy about the fact that you can't really call in. I don't have a call in number. However, when you tune in live, I have a live chat, and you can always chat with me while I'm on live and have constant dialogue. But tonight's conversation on Conversations of a Sister, we're going to talk about the Trump administration and their 100 days in office. Isn't it interesting? The Trump administration's first 100 days in office. And you know, usually for a new president, it it spells of a bold time, a time for action, a time to act on campaign promises, and a time to be bold on their new direction for for the country. And for those of you who don't live under a rock, I'm sure you know that Donald Trump's entire campaign was uh, was leveraged on hate, uh, discrimination, uh, bigotry, uh, prejudice, uh, and fear, which all equals chaos. So, uh, with that being said, let's delve into Trump's first 100 days. What do the first week of Donald Trump's second term, what does it look like? And it wasn't a back-to-back term. We know that he was president 45. He lost to Joe Biden. Yes, he lost to a legitimate election, Joe Biden. And he's been reelected or was reelected based upon the economy and the fears that were fed along his campaign trail. Because, yes, he fed fears. And on top of that, people were complaining about the high cost of eggs. Hell, the high cost of living. Because the cost of living, truthfully, was high in the beginning. Inflation skyrocketed. But what did it skyrocket from? Because apparently it was necessary in order for the economy and the country to be where it is now. And a lot of people on these social media platforms were posting where we are now. But let's look at the fact that Trump won, and he supposedly won by a landslide. Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe it simply because I cannot believe that half of the country voted against his best interest. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe they did, but who would? So let's look at the dizzying numbers of the orders that Trump has signed so far during his first, well, as he's entered his first or entering into his first 100 days in office. So, his first day of office, he designed to bar asylum for citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. He declared migrant crossing at the US Mexico border to be a national emergency. And this unlocked federal funding. You know, you do know that because he declared it an emergency, it unlocked federal funding. And direct federal agencies began to investigate trade practices, order the government to assess feasibility of creating an external revenue service to collect tariffs. You know, the tariffs that he talked about that everybody thought was just so great. Yeah, we're going to pay for those. He's also withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreement, which rolls back a variety of regulations on tailpipe population, energy efficient appliances, and he opened the Alaska wilderness for oil drilling. Huh. But the one that he has done, I think it was first, was pausing DEI, pausing loans and federal funding for programs that support poor people, such as Meals on Wheels. And he's basically rescinded almost everything that Joe Biden, the laws that Joe Biden had in place. He also withdrew security clearances and protection from those top 12, I think it was 12 generals that spoke out against him during his campaign. Was it 12 or 14? Nevertheless, he has canceled all of their protections. He said that they make enough money to hire protection for themselves. So he has canceled all their clearances, all their protections. He's trying to put individuals in place that is going to be loyal to his agenda. And what is the agenda? The agenda was discussed during the election. He denied it, but we all knew, for those of us who knew, that he was lying because the agenda was Project 2025. And the individual who, or the individuals who was working on Project 2025 are being hired into his administration. And to date, and of recent, he is offering over, I think it's 2,000 federal employees to take a buyout package. He wants them to simply resign. Wow. So that means that he wants no one in place that's outside of his agenda to know the criminality that he plans to overtake in the federal government, because that's what con men and con artists do. Yeah, Donald Trump might have won the election and might be president of the United States, but he is also a felon. And speaking of felons, the very first thing he did, which was a slap in the face and the betrayal to every police officer who wears a uniform in the United States that's decent. But the betrayal was the fact that he released 1,500 insurrectionists from jail. They were released. As a matter of fact, I think that they were released the night that he took office. That was the first thing he did. He signed pardons for over 1,500 insurrectionists. And it was a slap in the face to justice everywhere. It was a slap in the face to decency. It was a slap in the face to those police officers who lost their lives. So, can you imagine if it was your family member or your loved one who was killed on January 6th of 2021? Can you imagine? And him releasing those dangerous killers and destructive individuals into the streets. One officer who testified during the January 6th committee hearing, he was threatened. His life was threatened. And, he did a press conference. He said, I'm basically afraid for my life because now I have to defend myself. He said, they found out where my mother lived, and she was outside raking her leaves one day, and someone walked up to her and they smeared feces in her face. He said, so I can't imagine that he's released over 1,500 felons. I can't imagine, what they plan to do. Because at the end of the day, they're felons like he is. They were locked up. They were in jail. And he let them all go free. And when this happens, by the way, when people feel as though they have someone who is on their side in their wrong, they feel as though they are above the law, which is why you have a lot of, individuals of another race who are emboldened by the hatred. They're emboldened by it because it emboldens them to spew their hate, to spew their prejudices, because they feel as though these are things that they will get away with. So, one of the individuals that was released from prison, one of the insurrectionists that was released from prison, got into an altercation with a police officer, and he was murdered. And I think it happened. This young lady that I went to school with, she sent me the article the other day via email, and she said that one of them has already been killed. I think it was a routine traffic stop, and the officer maybe asked him to get out the car, and he started to fight with the officer. So the officer shot him. I guess he felt like if he fought with the officer, uh, no matter what happened, Donald Trump would save him. But the deputy shot him dead. So for the insurrectionists that were released from prison, the judge specifically told them that they are barred from Washington, D.C. They can never step foot in the streets again of Washington, D.C. And that if they were caught in Washington, D.C., they would be arrested. And this time they would be arrested with some serious time. See, You have a lot of federal judges who are not playing and who will uphold the law. Just for example, the attorneys, because when Donald Trump issued this order on birthing rights and birthing citizenship, you have parents who actually filed a lawsuit, and you have attorneys who rushed to court to block this order. And that's exactly what a judge did. A judge blocked the order. And then President Donald Trump, he sent his attorneys in to appeal it. And they said the article said the judge ripped the attorneys so bad. The attorneys for Donald Trump. The judge ripped those attorneys so bad that those attorneys were afraid that they were going to be disbarred because the judge couldn't believe that they had brought something so unconstitutional before him and expected him to rule on it. He was going to issue disbarments for Donald Trump's attorneys because he couldn't even believe that they brought it before him, that it was unconstitutional what he was doing. Just like all of these programs that he's looking to cut, that poor people benefit from, uh, Meals on Wheels, um, free lunch programs in school, grants for different individuals and businesses. All of these fundings hurt the average individual. It's going to hurt them. And for those who are impacted by it, these are the results of voting in not only a felon, but a racist who does not have the country's best interest at heart. The only thing that they have at heart are their own interests. That's it. The only thing he's looking out for are his interests, not the interest of the people. That's not what it is. And all of these tall tales about Donald Trump going to North Carolina and saving the flood victims, having them put in homes and hotels the same night that he was there visiting, that's not true. That's not true. He didn't do that. That didn't happen in North Carolina. The funding that they have being advertised and shown on Instagram saying that Biden refused funds in North Carolina and FEMA didn't give North Carolinians funds, and Trump rushed in and pointed here and houses were being built and he pointed over here and the military was there doing this and doing that, and he pointed over here and money just started to flood in. Those are all lies. But because Mark Zuckerberg, is that his name? The Facebook founder, Mark Zuckerberg or Zuckerberg, because he refuses to fact check, these are the stories that are floating around social media. Donald Trump is not the savior, and Donald Trump is not going to save you. And he is not going to save the people, just like he's not going to save America. And his idea of making America great again is defunding the very programs that's breaking news almost every day. That's his way of making America great again. And the migrants that he is so adamantly deporting, the ones that work hard like every other average American in this country, when you have a shortage on fruit and a shortage on vegetables because there's nobody doing that job, then what? Is that when the plan is going to be rethunk? Or is he going to start having the military knock on our doors to get out there, to pick the fruit, and to work the fields? What's the plan? Did anybody read the 1,025 pages of Project 2025? Because it's laid out within the next 4 years. And I personally think that the best is yet to come. But all of his constituents on Capitol Hill, all they keep saying is that they're doing the will of the people. So I guess this is what they signed up for. And unfortunately, for those of us who did not, we have to suffer with the rest. The only thing we can do is ask God to give us mercy. Mercy, because we're in the midst of it all. I think that, you know, you have to think about the lesser of the two evils. And the one that cheated his way in is the one that is evil. I had this gentleman send me an IM today. He said, this guy is a lawyer. And he was like, yeah, this devil that's sitting in the White House, he going crazy. But he must be stopped at all costs. Because what they're not really showing you on the news are the protests that are going on against the Trump administration daily in Washington, D.C. And according to Donald Trump's press secretary, I like her. She's pretty good, very thorough, well spoken, has it together, and is very certain about what she's saying. And what she's saying is that certain journalists who was not invited into the White House press conferences before are going to be invited into them now. They have to just submit an application. Those bloggers, those journalists who write blogs and write articles, such as myself, all you have to do is submit your application, and you will get a seat on the front row because he wants to open the doors to those online outlets to have access to the journalist room in the White House. Picture that. That's okay. I'd rather keep blogging from my computer for free instead of trucking it to get news from the White House. I have my news outlets anyway, and I'm going to always bring you the truth. And I think that for those who are looking out for the Trump administration's best interests, they will ensure not to fact check the details, which is a lot of what I'm seeing. But Donald Trump's administration and his first 100 days in office is to basically gut the federal government and all of the programs that help the people. People like me and people like you. And I think that it will affect at some point us all. And some people they don't seem to think so. Their attitude is what goes on in Washington does not affect me, but it will. Eventually, it will. Because what will happen is it will trickle down. And we saw the whole DI program leave, the announcement happening way before Donald Trump took office. You had Republicans shouting it and pushing it on the Hill. And the first person to go was that black president at the DEI program. I can't remember the name of the college, but that's what started it. And they started getting rid of all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And they're encouraging businesses to do the same. And you have some businesses that's pulling back and saying, we will not. We will continue to support our DEI programs. And no, thank you. It's okay. We don't care that you don't fund us, but we are going to stand on what we feel is right. Because deep down inside, I believe that right is going to win every time. Right, right will win every time. And Costco's, I know, was one of the businesses that pushed back on the administration and was like, no, we're embracing our DEI programs. We are not going to get rid of them. So Al Sharpton the black activist, he did a buy-in at the Costco's in Harlem on Saturday, where he shopped at in Costco's with over 100 National Action Network members. I swear, I think it was more. It looked like it was so many more people, but they converged on the Costco in Harlem as a buy-in because they refused to give in to the DEI program cut. And you have so many other businesses that are complying with the administration for cutting DEI programs. And if they continue to have them, they won't get funding for them. And that's fine because some people feel as though it's okay. We're going to still keep our programs and we'll fund them ourselves. So I think that I implore you to look at a lot of the businesses that is supporting the DEI initiative versus those businesses that are not. Now, the businesses that is supporting the DEI initiative by not having diversity, equity, and inclusion in their businesses, those are the businesses that individuals are boycotting. They're calling for a boycott on those businesses. I know one of them is Target because there are a lot of Black entrepreneurs with their products in Target. And they really don't want the Target boycott because that's going to hurt their product. But if they're calling for a Target boycott, it's a it's a lose-lose either way. So it's like you either jump on the bandwagon or you jump off. But the decision is yours to make. I just sell my product from my website. I'm not in Target or Walmart. I'm just live at www.readyriderproductioncompany.com. And yes, I do support diversity, equity, and inclusion. I always will. I always will. So the first 100 days in office for Trump is pretty grueling. It is also causing stress, fear, chaos, and just pure fear amongst individuals. You have individuals who are afraid to leave their home. You have some individuals who are afraid to send their children to school because they are now living in fear. So it is the great interruption of life. And don't get me wrong, you do have some migrants who come into this country who have committed a crime because way before the Lacey girl got killed, where was she in Kentucky from jogging? There were three black students who got killed first by immigrants in Newark, New Jersey. And I think that happened way back in the 2000s. They were sitting in a park in Newark, New Jersey, in their neighborhood, and these migrants were there, and they killed. It was three of them. They killed all but one. The one girl survived, went on to college, went on to live her life, but she lost her best friends, and I think one of them was her brother. And they were killed by migrants. And this happened way before the law was just signed for this girl and the jogger that was killed by the migrant. Uh, there was just three individuals killed in Newark, and that happened years ago. So the reason why a law was passed for the young lady jogger was because of her skin color. Because I'm sure that black individuals are being attacked and killed by migrants every day. And there is no law signed on their behalf with their parents there, with the president that's thankful. So, I mean, come on, look at the big picture here. Before she was killed jogging, there was others killed right here in North New Jersey. I remember it. I'll never forget it because it was horrific. That's how bad it was. It was chopped up. And the one girl that survived, she ran. She ran for her life. So please, it's like miss me with the dramatics because that's exactly what this is. Trump has something to prove, and he has to prove to those who voted for him, especially those who hate migrants, that he's doing something about them. But you cannot migrate people back to a country that you don't belong in yourself. We're all immigrants. We didn't find this country. This Native Americans were here when they were slaughtered. So really, really, you really back immigration? We're all immigrants. All of us. Do your history. Read up on it. I thank you for tuning in tonight. The conversation is never ending and always continuing. And I'm sure it's a different topic each week. I thank those who are sending me emails on the topics that they would like to hear. Because as we continue to have conversations throughout this year, those are conversations that we are definitely going to have. I thank you for tuning in tonight. I moved a lot because my back is killing me. I thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope to see you next week, same time, 8 o'clock p.m. here on YouTube. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. This way, every time we go live, you'll get a notification. I thank you for tuning in. Until next week, bye.